Hello everyone, and welcome to the playultra podcast. This is episode 12, and I'm alone. Jonathan, Jordan, Nathan, they all left me alone. One's at DEF CON, one's at Dota 2 finals, and one's holidaying with family in Toronto. It's up to you to guess which is which, for who. But today I have a guest to accompany me, Colm Larkin.
That's right, yeah, hi.
Hi, so he's from Dublin, Ireland, and his studio another
Another
word
crazy word. I say Gambrinus, but that's another made-up word. So
okay, what does it mean exactly? How did you get that name?
It was quite a few years ago actually, and I was just looking for kind of a unique name.
You just made up one on the fly?
Yeah, kind of like that, and I just kind of liked the sound of it. I was able to get the domain name for it, and I was googling it. There wasn't really any other use of it, so went for it.
So you're the founder of Gambrinus, right?
That's right, yeah. And it started as a one-man band, like just me.
Cool. And Gambrinus recently released Guild of Dungeoneering.
That's right.
Which is an indie game
that
it's went on game. Steam front page.
That's right, yeah. On launch day, we got featured by Steam.
And you were hawking Steam front page for like a few days?
Yeah,
launch,
we were there.
After launch?
We're in the top sellers list we're in the top 10, which is, shown on the front page, and we were featured on the front page, the big kind of little
slider thing?
Yeah, the thing that, yeah, exactly. And they kind of only, they manage that, they choose games. Something like 14 games came out the same day as us.
Okay.
I think only one other was featured. So they kind of feature games they think are good or selling well, or something. It's up to them. But yeah, they featured us, which was really cool.
So it's handpicked?
Yeah, that top capsule definitely is. It mixes in stuff like recommended for you nowadays, and I think that's automated. But the new releases, I think they handpicked them. Yeah.
So you were in both the slider and the bottom list?
Yeah, the top sellers list. That was cool.
Cool.
Now we slid out of there, so we're in the top 10. I don't know, maybe the first 24 to 48 hours, and then we slipped out a bit. But that was still really cool.
Did you see like a spike?
Yeah, big
in sales.
Yeah, of course. I mean, launch day is always the big one, so it starts pretty strong, and then actually for us, kind of slid down slowly because we're quite lucky. We got a lot of Twitch and YouTube people playing the game and sharing it. So I think that kind of gave us a nicer tail. Now it's slowed down to a much lower amount nowadays. We're about 3 weeks out, but it's still cool. A lot of people are still playing the game, and we're working on it. We're not working on a new game. We're working on more things for Gilded Dungeoneering.
And tell the good people listening to the podcast, what is Guild of Dungeoneering?
That's right. Yes, sorry. So it's I describe it as a kind of reverse roguelike, because you're kind of doing some dungeon crawling, you're taking on a dungeon, but you don't have direct control over your hero. Instead, they move by themselves, and you build the dungeon around them. So you kind of build the dungeon, but it's not like Dungeon Keeper where you're trying to kill heroes. You are trying to get them to win, but for them to win, you have to kind of create the perfect dungeon for them. So you have to, start them off with some low-level monsters so they can beat them. And then when they'll get loot, they'll kind of level up, and you're kind of build their equipment. So the equipment gives you cards, and when you are in battles, it's a card-based game, and you have full control in battles. And so you're kind of building their deck as they level up and as they kind of find loot. So that's kind of the game, and you replay that game a lot of times. So any particular dungeon run, you start from the beginning, you build your deck by taking on monsters, and then you win or lose. And then there's a whole metagame, which is the guild. So we're casting you as like the guild master. And these heroes are kind of disposable. You can get new ones, no problem. And you're kind of sending them off to their doom in quests. And if they make it back, you take in all the money they got, and you use it to level up your guild.
Great. So do you have time to play video games?
Not as much.
Recently? Have you been playing anything recently?
Yeah, a little bit. Been playing a good bit of Hearthstone. I really enjoy that game.
That's a major influence on Guild of Dungeoneering, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's kind of like maybe something I aspire to as a designer.
Mm.
I really like their simplicity and the fact that the depth of their game is revealed as you play further. Because I remember when I first played Hearthstone, I thought it was too simple. I was
Do you think it's too much luck base?
No, actually, I don't.
Because I believe that is one of the biggest criticism that it has, right?
It's
That
funny.
pretty much luck based.
A lot of people level that same criticism on Gilded Dungeoneering, you know, because a lot of the mechanics are card based, so that would be similar.
Yeah.
You know, it's very easy to say, "Oh, I didn't draw that one card that would have, you know, won the game for me," or you know, my opponent drew that one card that let them win. But that's kind of so the luck in card games isn't about drawing that one card; it's about how you deal with your luck over many card draws, and that's where you see people playing, you know, card games at a competitive level, you know, like the best Magic the Gathering players in the world, they win consistently, despite the fact that everyone's playing the same card game as, you know, it's based on the shuffle and randomness. But skill edges out that, and tactics and planning and adapting to what you draw. That's all skill based. And that's what I love about card games.
Yeah, I was watching a video. Yeah, disclaimer, I still haven't played your game yet.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's on my wish list, but I have so many stuff right now because you never play, you only play like 5 to 10% of your Steam library. So I am holding out for now until I really have. I probably will buy it maybe end of the year or something.
Cool. By then we'll have more stuff in it, so
cool.
It'll still be good.
Because I was watching the Total Biscuit, WTF is
that was a
on
good
Guild of
video,
Dungeoneering.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I love his stuff. So
a funny thing about that video, right?
Yeah, right.
Do you ever watch? He has a co-optional podcast.
Yeah.
So only a few days before that video came out, they brought us up on the co-optional podcast.
Cool.
So like Dodger and Jesse Cox are two other main, you know, the normal people on the co-optional podcast, and they usually have a fourth random guest then. So
yeah.
Both Dodger and Jesse Cox had played Gilded Dungeoneering at PAX South and PAX, and maybe at E3 again. They'd liked the game early on. They were kind of talking about the game during development. That was really nice. So anyway, in this one, just before launch day, they had a co-optional podcast, and they brought it up. And Total Biscuit said, "Oh yeah, I played the game. It's mind-numbing." So, you know, he said that. I was like, okay, he hates the game. That's fine. So then the day, I think it was a couple of days after launch, the day that he put up the WTF is Gilded Dungeoneering video, I was like, oh no, this is going to be bad. He's going to really like attack
Murder
us.
you guys.
Yeah, because you know he won't pull punches.
Yeah, that's the thing about him.
Yeah,
He's
and that's
brutally
good.
honest.
That's why people watch him, obviously.
Yeah.
But actually, you know, so in the podcast after he'd said, you know, no, it's terrible, it's boring, Jesse Cox, who really likes the game, told him to, you know, like, play it a little longer. He said, no, you're too early. It isn't like that. Like, play it a little longer, and the depth will, or the fun will reveal itself. So obviously he did, because he gave us a very fair shake in the video, you know, and he clearly understood like the mechanics of the game. So I was really happy that he did that. That was cool.
Yeah, I think he also mentioned about the luck stuff.
Yeah. But which is funny because I think he plays a lot of Hearthstone.
Yeah, he does. I think he streams Hearthstone as well.
Yeah, exactly. So,
or at least he has videos up of Hearthstone.
So, you know, he understands what is down to luck and what is down to reacting to luck or dealing with luck, you know, over many card draws. You know, if you have a game with cards in it, or if you have a game with dice rolls, I think cards are more forgiving. But if you have a game that does that, of course, you can say there's luck. But to say it's entirely dependent on luck is wrong, I think.
Do you see like spikes in sales whenever a big YouTuber or a Let's Player or a streamer releases a video of a game?
Definitely, yeah. We've been lucky that we've had quite a few big streamers. So that Total Biscuit video is a good example. I think that might have 250,000 views, something like that. I mean, that's that's a huge amount of people having watched that video. And that was a video just on our game, you know? It wasn't a video that just mentioned us. It was just a short video telling his fans about our game. I mean, that's amazing. So yeah, that does drive sales. I think we've been quite lucky that, not really by design, but by kind of maybe coincidence, that the style of game I wanted to make has turned out to be one that is really good for streaming. So, you know, it's completely turn-based. So a streamer can stop and talk to people, or, you know, they don't have to pause the game or anything. The game is completely, you just play it at your own pace. And, you know, you hire very disposable heroes. You can name them after people in your stream. They tend to die horrible deaths. You can make mistakes that people can, you know, berate you about in chat. So we kind of lucked into the fact that lots of streamers are playing Gilded Dungeoneering, and that's really helped us.
How do you feel about, like, Let's Players and all that? Because, you know, there's some big companies, AAA companies, they don't really like their IP being played, which is understandable because it is their IP. But how do you feel? Are they looking at it in the wrong way? Because you did mention that whenever a big YouTuber or a big streamer do a video of your game, you do see a spike in sales.
Yeah, I think they're great. So I think the counter argument would be, if someone watches a Let's Player play your entire game, why would they bother playing themselves? So I think that's the argument against it. But I don't believe that. I mean, you know, I think if your game is going to be good, then anyone showing it to fans, it's such great advertising. Like it's like an even better version of a demo. So if we had a demo where anyone could just play it and see, oh yeah, no, this game is fun, maybe I will buy it. I think having a streamer that they're already fans of kind of showcase the game and entertain people around the game for you, I think that's amazing.
Okay, just to go back, we do this a lot on the podcast. We go back here and there.
Sure.
Just to go back to the mechanics of the game, it's also the dungeon building part is also a card game, right?
Yeah, but a looser card game. So everything's represented as a card, but it's just kind of a way to give you the bits you interact with each turn. So really what you're doing is you're kind of building rooms. You've seen, I think, in that video, you know, they're like crossroads or left turns or straight corridors. And really what they are the dungeon around your hero. And most dungeons start with like an objective. So there'll be a treasure chest here and a boss here. And everything in between is blank. So you have to build the dungeon the way you want it to work. So every turn we give you 5 cards, and we say you can play up to 3. Some of those are rooms, some of them are monsters, and some of them are just treasure. So the monsters you want to put down, because that's the only way to get your guy to level up. That's the only way to find them loot. And then we give you little bits of treasure, which are useful as kind of lures. So if you put them down somewhere, you can try and change which way your hero is going to move.
Okay, so that is one of the, I guess you can say, mechanic that I don't really understand.
How the hero moves?
Do you... Oh, yeah, pretty much. How do you influence him moving? Because you can't directly control him, right?
No, but we've tried to make it transparent, but it is something you do learn by practicing. Okay. So as you play, we actually put like little blue footsteps down through the dungeon. That shows where the hero is going to move right now. So at the start of your turn, you can see they're going to move 2 squares up. So you have to have something connected for them to move to. But generally speaking, they'll look at the dungeon and they'll score it. And stuff like treasure, obviously they're drawn towards. Monsters the same level as them, they're drawn towards. Monsters lower level than them, they're drawn to, but only slightly. And then monsters that are higher level than them, they're pushed away from. And then unexplored areas, parts of the dungeon they haven't been to before, they're also drawn to. So we kind of just score the whole map, and then they head towards the thing that's most interesting to them. But you can affect that, so you can see exactly where they're going to move, and then you can put down. Sometimes you draw in your hand a gold pouch or a gem. You could put that down in a room you want them to go to, and you can see how that changes where they move to.
But you can't undo the card play, right?
No, we don't have a way to do that. So yeah, it is final. But I mean, that also is, I hope, part of the fun, which is, since you're given kind of disposable heroes, Sometimes when they do something really stupid and kind of run to their doom, that can be funny.
I think one of the best, definitely like the most, the biggest part of the game is the aesthetics. It's an extremely gorgeous game.
Thank you. Yeah, I really like it.
I really love the art style. So, okay, before that, just tell us who is Gambrinus? Like,
So
who do you have currently in your team?
there's 5 people who worked on the game. And it began as me kind of doing programming, game design. Very quickly, Fred joined, and he's the artist who's done all the art. And then there was kind of a long gap, almost a year, because we were kind of just working on our free time. And then I got Steve, who composed the soundtrack. And we got 2 more people then, Owen, who joined as programming, and Ollie, who joined in game design. So what eventually happened was I kind of became like the director. So I was still helping with game design, helping with programming, but it wasn't my only job anymore.
Doing a lot of marketing?
Yeah, and sorry, I've been doing that from the beginning as well, yeah.
So development on Guild of Dungeoneering started in 2013 October.
That's right, yeah. But only part-time and only 2 of us.
Yeah, and you mentioned like in April 2014, was it?
That's right.
You guys went full-time because you saw the potential in it?
Yeah, though at that point it was only me who went full-time. So I gave up a software engineering job here in Ireland, and I decided the game, had potential, and decided to go for it. And later that year, I started hiring the next 3 people.
How did you eat?
So I think we're in kind of a lucky situation that my wife supported us. So I like
cool.
to joke that the game is wife funded. But
it's good to have somebody supporting you like that.
Yeah, so kind of I was lucky to have that option, I think. But there were other things I did. So I also got onto an Irish government startup program. So it was like a new business program, and that actually paid me a small salary for 6 months. So I got onto that. So I actually gave up my job, went full time, and then applied for this thing and got onto it in June. So from June to December of 2014, I had like a small salary, which was great. Because my plan, so my background is programming. My plan actually had been, if money got tight, to just do some freelance programming. There's a lot of opportunity for programming in Ireland at the moment. There's kind of a lot of tech jobs here. But as it happened, I never had to do that.
So was it like they gave you a seed fund kind of thing?
No, it was because it's games. I actually didn't like the idea of trying to get investors and seed funding. That usually means you want to go down the venture capital route, which is usually around getting more investors and making a platform, not making a game. So I didn't even go for that. This particular program I got onto is more like a earlier stage, and maybe you'd use that 6 months to get to the point where you'd look for investors. So it was really useful. It just pays for one person, like the startup creator, I guess. Kind of the idea is that if you're kind of not giving up a full-time job to try a startup, this gives you that little bridging 6 months to make it okay. It's a good program. It's called New Frontiers in Ireland.
I read that Guild of Dungeoneering got its start at a game jam called One Game a Month.
Yes, I love One Game a Month.
Are you still an active member? Do you still do that often?
So I no longer make a game every month because what happened was I started just making the same game every month, Gilded Dungeoneering. But I'd been trying to make games for years and really just not doing it. Like I started 2 different really big projects by myself that I abandoned. And in 2013, myself and a friend were talking about game jams and how it was the one time where we felt we're productive. And we brought up this thing we'd heard about, One Game a Month, which was it's just like a game jam on your own terms. So it's very casual. You don't have to participate, but the idea is each month just make something. And we liked the idea so much, we actually kind of founded a chapter of it here in Dublin, and we decided to have a meetup each month. So at One Game a Month, it's at onegameamonth.com, and it's a worldwide self-participatory, very casual thing, but it's amazing. So we took that same idea and we just met up at the end of each month, a group of game makers here in Dublin. And that's now been running every month for over 2 years. And that's brilliant. So that's been really good community. So it's a place to show your prototypes, to meet other game devs, to get feedback on your game. So I was showing rough prototypes I made, and then all through the development of Gilded Dungeoneering, I was bringing a build of Gilded Dungeoneering and asking people to play it.
I was reading something you wrote about prototyping, and that you said that was probably one of the biggest advice you can give to a new indie developer.
Yeah, I'd stand by that.
So yeah, you pretty much advise indie devs to go on to game jams and prototype it and show their prototype to get feedback.
Yeah. So I think the big reason a lot of people would say, start making games is because they have a really big idea. Something is really driving them to try and make games. Most people don't want to make small games, that aren't as good as the games they see on Steam. But, and I've made that same mistake, and so many people do. When you start, you don't have the skills to make the big game. And that's where game jams are so great, because they force you to make a small game. So if you join a game jam, so like Ludum Dare is one weekend, one game a month is over a month in your own free time. You have a deadline. You have to scope down your idea, and you have to make something really rough and really small. But then you get to finish it, and then what you should also do is then share it, get people to play it, and experience that feeling. So the other side of making something is getting people to play it. And I think that's why it's wonderful, because it's very easy to be on a endless path where you never finish anything. So to me, yeah, that's the biggest advice I'd give is try doing some game jams, get used to finishing things, and then go back to your bigger idea.
Okay. I think the most interesting part for me for mechanic wise in Gilded Dungeoneering is how you incorporate board game and card game mechanics. So I heard that you're a big board game enthusiast, right?
Very true, yes.
So how did the translation from physical to digital, how did that come about?
So I love board games. I love card games. I play a lot of them. I guess I just found as I was making prototypes that I often felt I wanted to use elements and mechanics present in board games, present in card games, in digital games. So that happened to Gilded Dungeoneering. The idea of placing down rooms kind of came from Carcassonne. I don't know if you know that game.
I've heard of it. I've never played it though.
It's a great game. But in it, you pick a random face-down tile. You don't know what it is. They're all little square tiles. You turn it over, and there's like a little bit of river and the edge of a city on it, and you have to fit it into the existing map somewhere. So as a group, you're building a big map. It's got fields and rivers and cities in it. It's a lovely game. So it was that same idea of randomly generating tiles and you fitting them into, in this case, a dungeon, and kind of presenting them as cards. It was just a shortcut for, the idea that you're shuffling cards and drawing a certain amount each turn. And then when we went to make the battle system, cards made even more sense there. So the idea is that you have a deck, and you're influencing your deck by the equipment you find. And that just makes natural sense. If you've played card games, you understand that when you add a card to your deck, you may not see it. You have to draw it. So
yeah.
So I like using, the ideas, particularly like cards from board games, because everyone understands that property of cards, that generally they're shuffled into a deck and you'll draw a certain amount. There's no guarantee that that new ability you just got, you'll have it available at the start of the combat, but you might get to it.
Cool. And going back to the aesthetics and the music too, it's a very unique theme to the game.
Yes, yeah. It's quite.
So how did you guys come up with the team?
So
or like, what was the process like when you guys were building the team?
So I was kind of. You mean the theme tune at the start of the, or just the overall
basically
theme of the game?
Overall aesthetics, overall
Yes, yeah.
sound, and as well as the music at the start.
Okay. So the overall feel of the game, I guess it started where I was thinking this is going to be, a dungeon crawl, but then I started making it a little bit silly. So in a really, really rough early prototype, before even Fred was involved, there was a chicken. So you could you could fight a goblin, but you'd also sometimes fight a chicken, and that silliness, was present very early on. So that idea was always in the forefront of my head. And when Fred joined and started doing art, he actually took the chicken and turned it into a rubber ducky, like you have in the bath.
Yeah.
And that has become our tutorial monster. When you first play the game, you're asked to fight this rubber ducky. But all our monsters are silly. So this idea, we both liked it, of taking, even say an RPG and just making it very silly. Kind of, we liked it and we ran with it. And then, so Steve is the composer. When he joined, I didn't have a great direction for him. He was kind of on his own making the music. But one thing I did want to try was to have a theme tune, and that the theme tune could be a little like Monty Python, so silly.
Okay.
And we kind of went through some, and we have really nice background music during the game, but the theme tune has singing.
Yes, and it's very good.
It's great, yeah. But I kind of said, let's have something special for the title screen. So do you know the game Papers, Please?
Oh, I love that game. It's very
great
good.
Game. But
yeah,
at the time, I was just in love with the, when you start up Papers, Please, and the logo marches onto the screen, and they have this really great music. And it's just there at the title screen. And that was music that I felt, wow, this really sets the whole tone of the game. Like in your first 20 seconds as the game starts, it puts you in the right mood. And I love that. So that was actually kind of that plus, something like Monty Python was kind of all the direction I was able to give Steve. So he was wrestling with it for several months. And he actually was at a traditional Irish gig. Yeah, in a pub. Okay. They were just playing some Irish music, and a guy was singing, and they were singing a song. And in his head, he says, he basically started hearing everything sounded like it was Gilded Dungeoneering. And he basically realized he could adapt this song and make it work for us. So he went out then and hired one of those musicians to record and sing the theme tune for us, and the result is super.
So it sounded
so kind of,
I want to say pirate shanty, but it's not exactly a pirate shanty, right? It's
but it comes from the same place, it's kind of like someone singing in a tavern.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that's where pirate shanties come from too. So
I remember the start of the Total Biscuit video. You watched it, right?
Yeah, I sure did.
And in the beginning, he just let it run because he said it's like one of the best menu music he's ever heard.
Yeah, that's cool. I've seen that a few times. A lot of people tweet about it and say, "Oh, the music is amazing."
Yeah, it just it just gives you an idea of the overarching themes of the game.
Yes.
Straight away, I totally understand when you mention Papers, Please.
Yeah, and that's
straight away you get it.
That's amazing.
You just get it, yeah.
So that was certainly what we were hoping to do, but it's amazing that we've, managed that. So that's down to Steve, our composer, Steve Gregan.
Okay, so another thing I want to ask: how did you guys come up with the bloody good art style like that? The pen and paper. So what was the thought process? Was the idea just straight from you because you're into traditional board games and stuff like that?
Well, the story there was I'd kind of been working by myself and using free art, and I started looking around for an artist to partner with. And I was talking when I kind of joined up with Fred. I told him that one of the things I thought about doing if I couldn't find an artist was to just get out square graph paper and draw monsters on it, draw dungeon rooms, tiles, and scan them on a scanner, and the idea would be this very homemade, not very nice looking look, but it would at least look different. So he I was just saying this was one of the ideas, and he basically took that and he came back with the art style that's in the game now. So he took the idea of drawing on graph paper and he just realized it incredibly well. It's really nice, I think.
Yeah, I think it pretty much defines the game, the sound and the art style right now. How did you? What was your thought process going into a market of roguelikes? Because there is like a bunch of games right now using that same kind of mechanic.
Yeah,
they call themselves roguelike or roguelite.
Or roguelike like.
Yeah, pretty much.
And we use that term as well. And in a way, we're probably the least roguelike. Our game is quite hard to define because we kind of pull elements from many different things. Probably it's most like a card game, but it has just other elements. I like roguelikes. I like the fact that you kind of fail and replay and relearn and become kind of master the game, and that's a nice feeling as you improve your kind of skills. And that's something we did want to capture. We've made it quite accessible, so it's like a mini roguelike in that each particular dungeon run is a short roguelike experience, because even if you win the dungeon, we make you sell all your equipment and reset your hero back to level 1. So the next time you bring them into another dungeon, they're back to the start. So that's like classic roguelike. Every run, you start from the beginning. But that was quite contentious. We've had players ask us, a lot of players ask us on the forums, why do you do this? I don't like it. But to me, that's the unique thing that makes the game interesting.
They don't like the roguelike mechanic?
They, in particular, don't like the fact that we're asking you to, take on a whole lot of different dungeons in a row, but that your hero resets in between. On each run, they have no equipment.
Level 1.
Yeah.
Right.
Which, it is unusual. But to me...
It is. I think only a couple of games that I vaguely remember does that.
But to me, that's good. Because I don't think people want the same game over and over. There's many other games you can play that will do kind of like traditional dungeon crawl experiences. So, I like that we're offering something a little different there.
And I think if the hero is able to be the same level and bring its equipment for the next dungeon,
it totally.
How are you going to balance that?
Yeah, it totally ruins the balance. But it also takes away the fun. So, and we see both sides of this. So people do complain about it, but lots of other people, really like that. They like the fact that, that is the fun, starting at level 1 and working at how to level up your hero to be good enough to take on the boss or take on whatever your objective is. We use a lot of bosses.
I saw one, it's like a mimic treasure chest kind of thing.
I like that one. So that's like a 2-part quest. In the first quest, you just have to loot 3 different chests. And then the second quest, it's the Mimic Queen. And, her dialogue is like, you're the one who looted my grandparents. So, and she chases you, actually. That's quite a hard boss fight because she runs after you. And you only have a limited number of turns before she'll catch you.
There's a lot of the small little, like, funny little dialogue. Did you write all of that?
I wrote a lot of the dialogue. But the other guys helped out as well. I'd say I wrote well over half. I'm not sure. I wrote a large amount of the dialogue. It's quite hard. It's funny, so we have a unique set of lines for each character class. So you start a new game and you only have a chump. And he's just bad at everything. But then you can very quickly hire 4 new classes. So we have like an apprentice, a mime, a cat burglar, and a bruiser. And we kind of theme each of them to have their own dialogue and their own personality. They're all the same. So every mime has the same lines. But it really helps, it's just text, but it helps give them a unique feel.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the development phase. Every project will have its hiccups. What were yours, and if there was any, looking back in hindsight, were they avoidable, or how would you do things differently?
Yeah, that's a good question. One thing that kind of I found difficult the whole way through development was, so the whole point of the game was that you don't control your hero. That was there from the very beginning, but that caused the most problems design-wise. Because, once you take that away, you still need the game to be interesting. You need to be making choices at every point. And so that was just a constant thorn in my side that, I liked the concept. But I really just had trouble making the game work around the concept. So it took us a lot of experimentation, probably the first year and a half playing with this idea and trying to make it fun. Another thing that was hard is knowing how long till you finish. So,
what do you mean by that?
So, let's say towards the end of 2014, I'm trying to work out, okay, when will the game be finished? And I'm planning out all the features that are missing and trying to work out how long it'll take. And just that I was always wrong about that. So basically, all the time, basically, I always thought, okay, every time I took kind of stock, I'd be like, I think it's about 3 months. And this happened, and then 3 months later, I'd be like, I was wrong, but look, I think now it's 3 months. So I don't know what that is, but I just continually wrong about schedule. And, if you're going to make a game, that's probably the most important thing to get right. But I'd love tips on that one. I don't know how to accurately schedule a game.
What is it that you did right? Because Steam is such a huge competition right now among games. There's like over 5,000 games. So what was it that you did right, like from the beginning?
So I think
in terms of like maybe let me try to narrow that down a bit.
Yeah.
So like in game promotion and game marketing, how did you do that, and what did you do right, or did you do anything wrong? Did you feel?
I did a few things right there, I think. So one thing I did was take it very seriously. So to me, making an interesting and fun game is one thing, but getting people to know about your game is equally difficult. So from day one, I basically spent, I think, around a quarter of my time. So 3/4 of the time developing and 1/4 of the time promoting the game. So in the beginning, I was spending time doing things like, so from the first day of development, I was writing or posting a thread about Gilded Dungeoneering on TigSource, which is an independent game forums. And I would just keep at that. So every time I had something new, I'd post it up there. Every time I had a design conundrum or some new art or a new playable build. So actually from October 2013, because I was using Flash, I had a web playable build, and I was asking people to play it and give me feedback. And that, the fact that I was sharing a playable version of the game from day one, really helped me. A lot of people did look at the thread and respond to me and play the game and, send me encouraging emails even. And actually just kind of this is what caused, all of this probably. From the end of month one, I put up, the Humble bundle.
Yeah.
So they have this, since they opened the Humble store, they have this nice widget. It's just a way to sell your game.
Okay.
And it's just a little, very simple to integrate, embeddable little thing you can put on any website. So I put that up and I basically said, this is the Gilded Dungeoneering. It's going to be all this. There's a playable version here. It's still in development. I don't know when it'll be finished. But if you want to pre-order it, it's $5. I said, when the finished game comes out, it'll probably be $20. And people bought it. Like a few people bought it in that first month. And that was really encouraging, crazy encouraging. So I think the fact that I was sharing the game early and that kind of put it out there and saying, this will be worth some money, and, they weren't getting anything for buying. They didn't get access or anything. So it's more like people kind of helping out, kind of giving you like the vote of confidence.
It's almost like a Kickstarter.
Yeah, and it's for the same reasons people would kickstart games. It's to be there early and to say this is a cool idea. You should do it. So that was certainly the case with the really early pre-orders with us. So that's one thing that worked. So just the fact of putting in the time and effort from day one on marketing the game. So it's a very easy mistake to make, I think, to focus on the game only and worry about marketing the game when it's launch day. And by then it's far, far too late. So when launch day came around for us, I've been talking about the game for over a year and a half. So that's important. The other thing I think we did well was our game was a little bit different. So the art style stood out. The music really stood out. The game itself was weird. It was like, oh, it's it's a dungeon kind of crawling game, but you don't control the hero. And anytime I said that concept to people, they'd be like, oh, that's interesting, or that's different. So just trying something different and maybe a little risky, that can help you kind of reach more people just because it's different. It'll help you get press. It'll help people try your game as well. So they're two things I think worked well for us.
You mentioned about the pre-ordering at how much again? $5?
Yeah, and actually that was just for the first few months. Then I put it up to $10.
How do you feel about doing that kind of thing, like selling your game much cheaper? And do you think that devalues your game in any way?
No, I think particularly that early. So that these were people buying into a playable demo and kind of the hope that I would finish it. It wasn't even a Kickstarter where they could see, okay, they'll only take my money if enough people all pile in. So it was more like patronage of people just kind of giving you a vote of confidence. But it was nice as well. It was kind of like a way to measure. Occasionally we get a press article and you'd actually see, a little spike in your pre-orders. Because normally it wasn't much. It was like 1 or 2 a week over the first year. But then, would have like an article on, Rock, Paper, Shotgun or something. And suddenly that day there'd be 30 pre-orders. So like it never amounted to much. I think in the first year it was about 300 people pre-ordered the game.
Did a lot of publications pick it up?
Yeah, we got quite a lot of press. So like that very first month before even Fred was involved, we got our first bit of press from indiegames.com. So they cover a lot of smaller and out there games. And because I'd been sharing the game and had this playable version, I didn't even know they were writing it. I just saw it turn up. They just had a little post saying, check out this game. So, from there, yeah, we went for Greenlight just around the time I gave up my job. That was April. Got greenlit after a month. And, that was my first push for press. That was the first time I actually went out and tried to get press. And we had a trailer, our first trailer then, and we had this Greenlight campaign. So we got some then as well. And, it's kind of invigorating when people write about your game. You can read people's comments. It kind of, I think it's really rewarding doing game development this way, where you're sharing rough versions of the game. It means you're getting kind of validation from the press that maybe what you're making is interesting enough to write about.
I want to talk about you getting a publisher. I think because a lot of consumers, I know I was like that. When we think of indie games, we don't actually think there will be a publisher.
No, and I mean, really, even the term indie started out meaning independent of a publisher.
Yeah, pretty much. So,
yeah,
when I think of indie game, it's like 2 people in the basement doing it.
Yeah.
And so, like, do you think this is where indie game is going? Or does that take away the entire meaning of the word indie game?
So to me, it's very hard to define, but to me, indie means independent creatively. So essentially that you're making the game you really want to make, and that no one's telling you to make a game a different way because that's the only game they'll pay for. So it used to be that you had to have a publisher to sell a game to anyone. So if you think about when, games were sold in physical shops, to get into a shop, you had to make boxes, you had to burn CDs. It was a big business, and you needed a publisher. That was the only way to do it because they had to put up all that money. And that meant they got a huge cut. They owned everything. Generally speaking, if you had your first game, you got a publisher, you were lucky to get a publisher, they'd pay you some money. They'd own all the future revenue. You'd get a little pittance of revenue share, and they own the IP usually. So for a sequel, they could just get someone else to make it. You could be cut out. So that's where this idea indie, I think, came from, where you didn't have to bow down to all that. And with digital publishing, suddenly the one thing publishers could do wasn't that important anymore. You could self-publish. So nowadays, for people like me, I think there's a new breed of publisher that are more like partners. So I partnered with Versus Evil. So they've published other games like the Banner Saga.
Okay.
That was the main game I had heard of when I approached them. And I actually approached a whole load of publishers, like maybe 10 or 15. Other, all ones that were focused on smaller teams. So I didn't go and try and talk to anyone big like Sony or Microsoft or anything like that. I just went after the people dealing with smaller teams like my own game. And to me, so what they were able to provide was marketing and advertising money and expertise. So, for example, as soon as I partnered with them, this was in January this year, we started bringing Gilded Dungeoneering to PAX. So we went to PAX South in January, PAX East in March, E3 in June.
And this was all paid for?
Yeah, this was what the publisher was paying for.
Okay.
So this is part of their investment in the game. And that wouldn't have been possible without them. I didn't have money to spend on that.
On getting a booth and everything.
Yeah,
right?
It's very expensive. But it makes a huge difference. So take PAX South. We went to PAX South. They had a great booth. Gilded Dungeoneering was on one entire side of their booth facing outwards. And we were in a great position in Texas, kind of in the main corridor. So, thousands of people were walking by. And basically for a whole 3 days, 8 hours a day, there were 4 PCs with Gilded Dungeoneering. And at all times, someone was playing on all 4 PCs.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. And that's one side of it. All these these people love games, people who pay to go to PAX. They're seeing your game and they're going to talk about it. We also had some big influencers. So we had, I was talking about the Co-optional podcast. 2 of the people on that podcast were at PAX South and played Gilded Dungeoneering, and they would never have heard of it except that we were there. So, going to conventions like PAX does make a big difference. So to me, that was the push to get a publisher. But then they also provide a lot of expertise around, trying to make sure we get featured on Steam, the right way to manage that, contacting press, all of that stuff. They've done a great job.
So publishers are basically moving towards being being a advertising agency kind of thing?
Would you say that? Slightly more involved. Maybe a step closer than purely advertising. So it is still very viable to self-publish. There was nothing stopping me going on Steam on launch day. I didn't need a publisher.
But you don't think you could be on the Steam front page if you didn't have?
I don't know if I would have been, because I wouldn't have been at PAX. I wouldn't have been at multiple PAXs. I wouldn't have gotten the same press coverage. I wouldn't have gotten those biggest streamers. But also, funnily enough, I wouldn't have gotten the publisher deal if I hadn't been doing all my own marketing all that time. So it all adds up. It's funny.
Do they look at your previous marketing efforts, or do they just look at the game and they say this looks like a game that we can sell well?
They do both, of course. They need games that are going to be easy for them to market. So the fact that I was able to get greenlit in a month, that shows that there is demand, or that people like the concept. the fact even that I was selling that small amount of pre-orders, that's valuable. People have paid money for this game that isn't finished, that's really rough, that, that's something that you can leverage. You can show that there is demand, basically. That's very important.
Did they give you like a fixed contract, or was it like negotiable?
It's negotiable. All contracts are negotiable, and we negotiated quite hard. That took about 2 months.
What advice would you give other developers, especially when it comes to negotiating the contract?
So, whenever you're negotiating, the best position to be in is to not desperately need it. So for us, there was always the option of just not using a publisher and just doing it ourselves, keep doing our own marketing, self-publish. So that meant, I really wanted what they could offer, but then it needed to be fair. It needed to be a two-way street. So that helps when you're negotiating, and also they need you, they need the unique game that's going to be a hit. They need to find you. So what you're providing is also unique, hopefully. You're making a game that is different and unique and special, and that's exactly what they want. So, make sure that is true when you're going into negotiating, and then, make sure you know exactly what it is you're signing. Don't just sign something. Don't just say, yay, we have a publisher. Very carefully read this very long contract and understand every bit of it, and, get a lawyer to review it. And then don't be afraid to negotiate it. Every part of that is changeable. We went through, and it takes a while because they'll say, no, we don't want to change that, but we might change this. And that's a very important process to go through. And you can only do it before you sign it. So it's very important to do it then.
Indie game publishing on PC, we all know it's way easier to be on the PC, right?
Yes,
but,
yeah.
Although I don't see Guild of Dungeoneering being very suitable for like a PlayStation or anything because of the controller.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say it is a game that you want to put it out on the consoles. How friendly are they to the indies exactly? Like, is there an option to self-publish or something like that?
There is. This latest generation of consoles has made it quite friendly. Just from talking to other people who are doing it, it's possible now. And maybe 5 years ago, it wasn't really possible because if you were small and self-publishing, if you think of Xbox, they would only put you on the Xbox Live indie game section. So it wasn't,
which was filled with a lot of
awful
shovelware
stuff. Yeah, but
yeah.
I mean, and they didn't feature it, so it didn't matter if your game was good there. It would never be on the front page of Xbox when someone booted up their Xbox.
Yeah,
and that's where you want to be. But now you can self-publish. Getting to consoles obviously is harder. Like, they all have a process where they kind of, I think it's called certification. Your game has to pass a lot of stringent controls, and they'll do stuff like say, no, when we hit this button, it's meant to cancel a menu. It should always be cancelable. They've just lots of rules, and so you have to pass all those. And generally speaking, that means, this is what I've heard, per console you need to spend a couple months kind of jumping through some hoops and making sure it works well.
Is there like a guide that you can go to or something like that?
Yeah, I think that they all have a guide. So I haven't done that ever, so I don't know for sure. But that's what I'm hearing. But I am hearing it is now possible. You could take Gilded Dungeoneering, you could self-publish, bring it to consoles, and it could be on the front page of consoles. That is possible now, which is cool. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. Because I don't think the console, let's say if you're solely playing on consoles, they're missing a lot of these indie games.
And people love these games, don't forget that. So it kind of got to the point where they were like, oh, actually, particularly when the Xbox One and the latest PlayStation came out. God, I can't even remember. PS4?
PS4, yeah.
So, the two of those came out at the same time, and they kind of started upping, the ante on each other, and announcing more support for indies. So that, they knew that their customers wanted games that aren't just the big AAA console releases. So that's kind of what's caused them to be, easier on indies. It's because their player base has wanted them. And that's fantastic.
I actually can see... I'm not too sure. I'm not a developer. But I can see sort of working for the Wii U with the tablet controller.
Yeah, it's true. How
would you balance that dual screen thing?
Yeah, dual screen would be hard. But you could, for Wii U, you could make the touch interface just the way you interact. So you could kind
like
of
with the cards and all that.
Yeah,
and then you just throw it up or something.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're looking actually at tablets and phones as maybe our next platform after PC.
Okay, I would love Guild of Dungeoneering on my phone.
Yeah, you can see how well it would work. It's touch space, you're dragging cards, that feels right. And even the game itself, it's short single-player sessions. You don't need to be online. You can play, for 20 minutes, and then your guild, the progress is saved. You can come back tomorrow or whatever. It'll work really well for phones and tablets. So we're going to do that next. And then actually we are considering consoles. So, just that one was always, like you said, it's a bit harder because of controllers. It's not the perfect game for, TVs, like a card-based, slow-paced game isn't, we're not going to be best-selling game on PlayStation. But, now that the game's come out, we can see there is demand and a market for it. We're definitely considering it.
So the next big thing will be the mobile market.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd like to, we're not going to change the game to be like a free-to-play game. We're going to stick with the idea that it's a single paid for.
Pay 50 cents to build this next corridor or something.
Yeah, because I dislike that idea. But also we don't want to have to redesign the game to work just because other people do that on mobile.
I think that would be just too much work.
Yeah,
maybe
so
you can. Yeah,
we're going to make it the exact same game on PC and on mobile. Obviously, we'll have to think up the interface a little bit. Yeah,
but I really love how Hearthstone does it because I have Hearthstone on my phone. My phone is like a 5.5 inch device, but the way they changed up the UI, it looks
they've done a great
like
job.
It was designed for phone.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really good.
I play a lot of Hearthstone on an iPad. I love it. I think it's better than on PC. The feel of dragging cards out is just really done.
Yeah, it just feels that, and having it on the go.
Yeah, it's lovely. But they took their time with that. They released on PC, and then it's almost a year later.
2 years ago?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was almost a year after that, or maybe longer, that they came out on iPad, and then there was another delay before it came out on phones.
Oh man, do I need to wait like 2 years for Dungeoneering?
Well, there's 5 of us. So, well, right now, what we're doing right now is we're doing more content for PC and Mac. But this is good. When we do bring it to tablets and phones, all that content will be available. So we're adding more content. We're fixing things. We're working on our first mini expansion. So we're probably going to do a few of those small expansions that just kind of add a bit of content to the whole game. And then we'll probably be looking at porting it ready for tablets and phones. Hopefully not 2 years. Hopefully in the next year.
Cool. Because it looks like something I really want on my phone.
Yeah.
It just looks perfect for a touchscreen.
I think it will work well. And I think by that point the game will be really excellent as well.
So you mentioned expansions and DLCs.
Yep.
What kind of content are you thinking of, like putting in, like extra characters, more dungeons, definitely, right?
Yeah, of course. So I kind of have 2 strategies for expansions. The first one we're going for is, we're calling them adventure packs. We're kind of taking the lead from how board game publishers do this. So
Okay.
I don't know if you know a game called Descent. It's like
I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
It's got miniatures and you little connectable bits of board that attach to each other, and then it's like, oh, there's a dungeon here, and your heroes have to defeat these monsters. So
and you buy more expansions to attach more.
Yes, and their system for expansions is one I want to copy, which is you can buy these smaller expansions that just add possibilities. So now you have two new monster types and 1 new hero type. So it's up to you to use them if you want to use them. So they kind of widen the possibilities in the game. And usually they'll add 1 or 2 more quests as well, just to have some content. And then they have other expansions, bigger expansions, that will do that in a much bigger degree. So they'll add a whole new campaign and then a whole new set of monsters. So kind of more like standalone expansions almost.
But will the bigger expansions include the smaller ones?
Nope, they're totally separate. And
okay.
you can pick and choose, which is nice, and we'll follow that as well. So with Descent, you could pick and choose which expansions you want to get. None of them are required, and they just change the game in different ways. So that's definitely the model we're going to follow. So our first smaller expansion is called Pirates Cove. It's funny that you said shanties because it's pirate themed. And it's going to do that.
So will there be shanties?
There'll definitely be shanties.
Oh, cool.
So, the idea here is we're going to add like a couple of playable character classes, a bunch of extra quests, obviously, new loot that'll we're not sure yet, but might appear throughout the game. So it's not just this one single player part of the game. It's adding new things that turn up throughout the game. So that's kind of the strategy with these kind of adventure packs, that they add more variety to your whole game.
So what kind of price points are you looking at for your smaller and your bigger expansions?
So the game itself right now, I'll use US dollars for simplicity. Yeah. The base game is $15, and we're going to price the Pirates Cove at $5. So that's kind of the model. The idea here is for people who like the game and want more of it. So we're probably going to do a few of those. I don't know yet price on bigger expansions, because we haven't thought them through properly yet at all. We'll probably look at that. I'd say we'll get out the tablet iPhone, phone version before we think of a bigger expansion.
Will the tablet and phone versions come out at the same time, or will it? Because Hearthstone came out with the tablet version first, if I'm not mistaken.
They sure did. Yeah, I think it was 3+ months later that they had the phone version. And there's a lot of challenges with the phone. Like, they changed their whole interface to work, and I think that's worth doing. And I'm sure we'll have the same challenges. I'm not sure yet. If we can do it, obviously it's better to release them both at once, because you get a much bigger market. There's actually way more phones than tablets.
Because it's just easy to bring in. Usually it's cheaper too sometimes.
Yeah. So, that's our motivation to do it. It'll depend. Technically, basically, it'll depend. If we can have the tablet version ready, 6 months before the phone version, I think we'd release it rather than wait. But I don't know yet.
Okay, I have to ask this because I'm an Android user, and we tend to be
ignored a little.
Forgotten one. Yeah.
We want to do both. We're using Adobe Air. It runs on both iOS and Android. So Owen, who's the programmer, has an Android phone, and he actually, just for fun, late last year, just tried packaging it for Android, and it ran on his phone. So
like smoothly and everything.
So we hadn't mapped any touch stuff, but you could play it. But that's interesting that it, without much effort, it did run. So that's hopeful. But there's a difference between your game barely running and your game being really nice experience.
And optimized for
so we have
device,
to optimize it, make it run, and then on Android there's a lot of different devices,
different screen sizes,
different processors. Yeah. So I've heard from others who do this more frequently, like who do a lot of mobile stuff, that is a lot of pain, and that's kind of the reason why people stay away from Android. It's just a lot of extra work. So we're gonna have to see. I'd really like to. It makes sense for us if it's doable.
Because I think there is a lot of people on Android just wanting like
the same
buy to play games rather than the free to play stuff.
Yeah, I think so too. Because that's how I game as well. I pay money for games on iPad. I think it's worth it. I like that style of game. I don't want a game that is like maybe making me a lesser class citizen because I'm not paying.
like Dungeon Keeper.
Yeah. But then again, I'm playing Hearthstone. So,
Yeah,
if you do it well, it's okay. It's when it's when you look at it and you go, I'm just being screwed around here. They're just messing with me here. That's where I don't.
I'm very excited right now to get your game on the phone. I might even wait.
Yep, that's totally cool. And the nice thing is, by then we'll have more content. So.
Oh yeah, and it'll be like and the expansions won't be sold separately, right?
I think
like one game of the year kind of thing.
That's possible as well, actually. Right now, I've been thinking. It depends how soon this happens. So it could be that we just have the game with like 1 or 2 expansions, and they're priced separately, like in-app purchases. So pretty much mirroring the way it is on Steam. But who knows if it took a long time? Yeah, like what you said, bundling it all together, that's possible too.
I want to ask, do you have an idea for a next game?
Yeah, I actually don't.
Have you been thinking about it already?
No. Finishing Gilded Dungeoneering was all consuming. There was no space in my head to think about other games. Right now, actually, I don't have any ideas. We're kind of set. We have a lot of ideas to expand Gilded Dungeoneering, which we're working on now. New DLC, but also new game modes. So we're trying to add like an endless mode, like a kind of challenge mode to the base game. So, there's this pretty big single player campaign, but that's it at the moment. So we want to add a thing outside that you can kind of replay. So kind of a high score challenge. So we're working on that.
Would there be leaderboards kind of thing?
Yeah. And it's kind of like, you're going to lose, but how far can you get? So we're kind of thinking this like endless mode. Totally different to the campaign. So we're playing around with that at the moment. We're trying to design something fun there. Sorry, how did we start this?
I don't remember. I think I asked you what was your idea for next game.
Yeah, sorry. So instead of next game, we're doing all this. We're designing around the framework that is provided by Gilded Dungeoneering, and there's a lot of fun things for us to explore there. My plan is ultimately when we decide, okay, maybe we should make a new game, what I'd like to do as a company is to make a few like game jam prototypes, just try cool things and do like a different one each week or something. Get a bunch of prototypes and share them, see what people think, and then pick the one we want to make into a real game. And maybe take that to something like Kickstarter. Maybe.
And I guess you'll be following the same formula you did with Guild of Dungeoneering. Start with a game jam, show the prototype, start the game marketing from early on.
Yeah, I think it's so valuable. It's especially valuable when you are no one.
Funny you mentioned Kickstarter. That was my next question, actually.
Go fire.
You didn't use Kickstarter for Guild of Dungeoneering, right?
No.
I think.
So it actually was.
I think my question is why? Because Kickstarter is the go-to platform these days to fund anything.
Yeah, and if you go back to 2013, Kickstarter was maybe stronger than it is now for games. It wasn't available in Ireland. So you could only do it if you're in the US or just around then if you're in the UK. And so to get on Kickstarter would have had to do some weird stuff like create a US company, like a shell company, do all kinds of paperwork, and then have real tax issues with getting the money into our actual company.
That sounds like a lot of stuff to do.
Sound like a lot of stuff to do to me as well. And, at the time it was just me. So I was like, well, I'm not going to bother with that. I'll just keep plowing away, making the game.
But is it available now?
It is, yeah. So actually, Kickstarter opened in Ireland in October last year, 2014. But at that point, I was already in talks with publishers. Or am I dropping again?
Oh, no.
Oh,
you're fine.
Skype is saying internet connection problem. Sorry. So I was already talking with publishers, and I'd kind of gone beyond the point where Kickstarter made much sense. So the game was further on than I thought would be ideal for Kickstarter. So I think maybe 6 months before that would have been a good time, but it wasn't possible.
But do you think, like, because since your game already had so much content, would the Kickstarter be way more successful because people can see something more tangible?
Maybe. I mean, I think if I went to Kickstarter for a future project, I would do more than just the prototype. So you start with a prototype, that's important. But I think for Kickstarter, you then, hire some art, like you do some polished versions of that prototype. They don't need to be playable maybe, but you need to show off what the final look will be. So Kickstarter, it's very visual. You need to show a very polished side of your game. So if we were to go and do that, I would spend some time on that. So take a prototype, make sure it's the game that's going to be good, but then also spend some time on making, putting your best foot forward there, showing some final art style, for example.
So I just wanted to get your opinion on this, because currently Kickstarter and maybe Steam Greenlight, was your game on Steam Early Access? I don't remember.
No, not Early Access. Just went straight to launch.
Okay, that's interesting, because usually a lot of games go on to Early Access before they go after they get greenlit.
Yeah,
and
it depends.
And it seems like something suitable for your game.
So I actually thought, obviously Early Access was a thing all through development. It started around when we started development, I think. So I was watching it carefully, seeing, is this a good idea or not? And I didn't think it would be a good idea for our game. So our game, I think, only got really fun and good in the last month of development. We had elements of fun before that, but if we had released on Early Access in January, and what we really had then was, one mission, that's, I don't think that's enough to go on Early Access. I think the best games for Early Access are ones where you release a game with a lot of fun systems, and what you work on after you go on Early Access is much more content. So, like survival games, Darkest Dungeon came out on Early Access, and they actually took a very polished Early Access. They had a very close to finished game that they went to Early Access with.
My current favorite Early Access game is Killing Floor 2.
Is that on Early Access? It's
extremely polished. Yeah, it is.
Wow.
It's extremely polished, but like you said, it's lacking quite a bit of content right now.
Okay.
But it is a very good game already.
So, yeah, I was looking at it. So there's downsides of Early Access as well, So you're diluting your launch day, really, because you're letting people play early, but you're putting off people like myself, actually, who want to wait for at least the finished version of the game. So I got Prison Architect.
Oh yeah.
So
I have that one too.
Yeah, I got it from a Humble Bundle, I think, at some point last year. And
okay.
It's on Early Access, and I played it, and I was like, this is a cool game. But then, I hit the limitations of what was finished at that point.
Yeah.
And what will happen now is I don't want to go back and see what's new.
Yep. Exactly.
Until it comes out.
That's why I'm refraining from playing Killing Floor 2.
Yeah. So I actually do that with almost all Early Access games. I'll just wait. I'm like, looks cool.
So you just buy it to support the developers?
No, I usually don't buy them. I just wait until they have a proper release. But the problem then is that, they kind of dilute their press. People write about them when they go on Early Access because it's new and interesting. And then maybe when they launch, the press are like, I already wrote about that.
And sometimes you don't even know sometimes you don't even know that they already went 1.0.
Exactly. So as a developer, you need to consider that very carefully. Early Access, it's got to be worth it for you, and you have to manage it well, and your game has to be right for it, and you have to be willing to get, to spread out the attention of your players and press over a bigger period.
Okay, I just wanted to ask your opinion, because Kickstarter these days are being used for sometimes very shady looking projects.
Sure.
As well as Steam Greenlight. Was that ever a concern?
So there has been a few games Kickstarted that have failed to make a game at all. And that's a real shame. And that, we were taking pre-orders at that point. We didn't do a Kickstarter, but we were saying you can buy the game for $10 and we'll give you the game when it's finished. So, we could have let down people too.
Mm-hmm.
A smaller amount, obviously. So, people doing Kickstarters and then failing to make a game, it does damage everyone's belief in the system. So it's kind of a shame that happens. Overall, I think it's great that Kickstarter exists. I think it's cool.
Yeah, it is definitely cool.
And actually, obviously the worst thing is games that raise loads of money and then never make the game. That's a shame. But another thing, it's not the worst, but I dislike when I see games that don't need Kickstarter doing huge Kickstarters. People who...
What do you mean exactly?
So there's been a few in the last year where they had a publisher ready to put up the money, and all they had to do was prove that there was demand via Kickstarter. But really what happened was their Kickstarter blew up. What's the castle?
Tree?
Yeah, that one, and the castle in Castlevania.
The Koji Igarashi one.
Yes.
Bloodstain.
Yes. So those two, I think, are good examples of games that didn't need Kickstarter. I mean, they did so well on Kickstarter that,
That was actually my next question.
I guess they were right.
How did you feel about AAA using?
Yeah. So that's exactly it. I feel sad about it because, one,
it used to be a community thing, right?
Yeah,
it was our stuff.
Yeah, one, they're taking away from. Maybe, I don't know if they really are taking attention away from other games, because, once you get someone on Kickstarter, they will go and look at other things on Kickstarter. That's not necessarily it. But maybe a problem they have is that, so if they raise $3 million or $5 million for their game, that isn't the amount of money it costs them to make that game, because they have a publisher.
It's quite misleading.
It is misleading. And actually the amount their goal, they went far beyond it. So I think their goal with one of those was $500,000. And that's a huge bit of misinformation. That game is never getting made for $500,000. That game is getting made for, if they make $500,000, they'll have, I think it was $5 million to spend, because they had a publisher ready to put up a significant amount of money. And that's more like the realistic budget for games, and actually much less than AAA games. So it's kind of sets a negative expectation. So if you see other small companies going with a realistic budget, like for a much smaller game, and it says like $250,000, that puts people off who might have kickstarted that game. So that's probably the thing I feel is unfortunate about AAA games using Kickstarter.
But there was a turn of events recently. Do you know Keiji Inafune?
Not personally.
The Mega Man guy? Yeah.
Yeah, with Mighty Number 9.
Yeah, so Mighty Number 9 is still not released yet, right? But he started a new Kickstarter a month ago for a new game. So Mighty Number 9 is the spiritual sequel to his traditional side-scrolling Mega Man game.
Sure.
While this new Kickstarter is called Red Ash, is his spiritual sequel to the Mega Man Legends third-person action adventure game.
Mm-hmm.
And which is something that everybody wants. But since his first Kickstarter game is still not released yet, and it just got delayed until 2016, his Red Ash Kickstarter actually failed.
Yeah.
Which is unheard of, actually. If you
But I think that's good. I think that's people
saying
not just
no,
believing the hype, actually looking at what what people have delivered. I think that's very important. So
the funny thing is they actually have investors to pay for the game already. So I have no idea what are they using Kickstarter for.
Promotion.
Promotion.
Marketing. It's a great way to get people talking about you.
But isn't it transparent to see that why are you funding a game that doesn't need funding? But that money can go to indie people who really need it.
But look at Bloodstained. They didn't need the money.
Yeah,
it's.
I'm not sure. Didn't he say something like, "I need to
prove there's
goal.
a demand"? Yeah.
Yeah.
But the money they actually raised, they didn't need that.
Yeah, not even close. I mean, it's Shenmue 3 doesn't need. How much did they get from that Kickstarter? $10 million?
Quite a lot, yeah. That's, funnily enough,
not even close.
That's not
to what they need.
Yes, that's my point. That doesn't compare to the budget of the previous one in that series.
The first game cost them
a large amount of money,
$60 million or something.
Yeah, and it was in
1999 or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
So I mean, the true cost of running a business and creating games is a lot higher than people think.
They made 6.3 million
Okay.
Shenmue 3
Yeah.
on Kickstarter. Yeah, so I don't know how many Guild of Dungeoneering you can make with that kind of money.
Quite a few. So I didn't have money, but I did work out recently kind of the amount of time we all spent across the years, because people were joined at different points. So I tried to count up just salaries, how much it would have cost to make Gilded Dungeoneering. Now we're based in Ireland. Ireland can be quite expensive, but I came up with a figure of about €280,000 worth of salaries.
Wow.
Went into, across just 5 people, went into Gilded Dungeoneering. Wow. That's not that much though. So that is for 5 people in Ireland. It's a small amount of time. It's less than a year.
How many man hours?
Yeah, so I was thinking man months.
Okay.
I did figure it out. I can't remember now. Oh, you're lucky I found it. It was something like... so there's some part-time here, which I have to divide. It was about 50 man months. So that's like 4 people for 1 year, or 1 person for 4 years. So it's around that.
So I think that's something that people don't really understand. Games cost quite a lot to make.
Yeah. And running a business is incredibly expensive. So when you start making games, it's just you. You don't need an office, and you don't need anything like that.
I think I read somewhere you wrote that you were actually paying some of their salaries, right?
Yeah. So 2 of the guys, I managed to get a little bit of money to pay. It was like minimum wage in Ireland.
Okay.
And the other guys I did a profit share deal with. So, you just try and do what you can to pay for everything. So I'm hoping the next game we're making, I'll actually be able to pay everyone a salary, including myself,
So, yeah, that's another thing.
So to me, that's the big win. If Gilded Dungeoneering does well enough to pay for normal development and salaries for another game, that would be amazing.
That's another thing. It seems like let's say with the KG Inafune Kickstarter, people always say that you tend to use the money you got from the first game you made to fund the next game you're gonna make.
Yeah, I mean that's how games work.
Is that a proper statement?
Well, if you think about it, if you spend 2 years making a game, and you could have a team of 5 or 10 people, that's a lot of money. But you don't earn any money until you're finished and you start selling the game. So in games, it's always previous projects are funding the next ones. It has to be. And I mean, Kickstarter and early access, they change that a little. But fundamentally, it's you finish the game and then you start making money.
So is that the plan?
Yeah, I would love that to happen. I would love to fund future games from Gilded Dungeoneering. I hope so.
Do you plan on maybe looking for investors?
No. I never tried to do that. I don't want to do that. I'd rather we stayed small. So 4 or 5 people, I think, is a really good number to make the kind of games I want to make. If we become super successful, maybe what we'll do is we'll double that and make 2 games at once.
How do you think can you break the cycle of having just limited budget to work with? Because you do need the profits to eat as well, right? So how do you break that cycle, do you think? I mean, for you.
So yeah, it's not easy. Games by their nature are hit based. So if you make 5 games, one of those games, if you're lucky, will be probably 20 or 30 times more profitable than the other ones. So that's, games you don't tend to have the same amount of success with any given game. So that's very hard to plan around. So, let's say, what if Gilded Dungeoneering is a big hit compared to our second game? And this happens with a lot of companies making games. they have a hit, they triple the size of their team, they make an even bigger budget game, and it doesn't do as well. They have to fire everyone. So, one way I'm hoping to counter that is to try and be very careful to stay small, which suits me as well.
Okay, so I'm out of questions. Yeah, I think
we
it's
did pretty well.
Very concise. A lot of information in like 1.5 hours. So tell the good people where they can find you, like on social media.
Yes. So if you're interested in what I'm up to, kind of everything we were just talking about, Twitter is probably the best place to follow me. So I'm at Gambrinus on Twitter. If you want to check out Gilded Dungeoneering, just Google it. It's there on Steam, or it's up on GOG and
you're on GOG
as well.
Okay.
Yeah, we went on GOG. I like them.
Was it easy
They're
to get
good
on?
guys. Yeah, it's very straightforward. You just have to be happy to have DRM-free version of your game, because that's their thing, which I am happy to do. I'm totally pro that, so that was no problem. And Steam is still always the best seller, but I like having it
on multiple
in more places than just Steam. Yeah, just to diversify.
Do they curate the game? Like, what kind of selection process do they have for GOG?
Yeah, they sure do. Generally speaking, I'd say if your game, it's actually easier now to get on Steam maybe than GOG.
Okay.
If your game, that used to be true. A couple of years ago, Greenlight was very tough, but now if you look at what's getting greenlit and what's coming out every day on Steam, there's a lot of games that they're not all going to be best-selling games, basically, if that makes sense. And GOG, if you look at what's on their storefront, it's actually all pretty good games. They are curating. So we just had a game, and it suits their audience. It really does, So they seem pretty excited, and they featured us as well. We were on their front page at the top, and that's cool.
Was that an arrangement, or only, or do they do that with like new games?
I think they'll do it because they're pre-curating,
Okay.
So every game that hits their platform is something probably they want to feature, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It does make sense.
Steam, yeah. Once you're greenlit for Steam, you can release any day you want. There's no curation beyond being chosen for greenlight. So, if I was self-publishing, I could just publish tomorrow suddenly, and then Steam might feature it if they look at it and think it's cool. But that's a bad way to do it. You're better off trying to line up with Steam, make sure they know your game is coming and know about it, and then your chance of getting featured is obviously better.
I really like their new software client, GOG Galaxy.
Oh, I haven't tried it yet, actually.
There's a feature that I really like. You can actually roll back updates if the current update screws stuff
nice.
up. Yeah, I mean,
that's cool.
Yeah, so I think they're very forward thinking. GOG.
That's cool.
Yeah.
They have achievements now. We just did Steam achievements, but I've got the API from GOG to look at matching achievements onto Galaxy.
Nice.
But we just have so little time.
Yeah.
We have so many things we can be doing. But hopefully someday we'll get around to that.
And when can we expect Pirate Cove? The next expansion?
Pirates Cove, we've started working on it now. We're gonna be showing something hopefully at the end of the month at PAX Prime. So hopefully some Pirates Cove content. But I don't know yet when it'll be out.
By this year, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Okay. Hopefully in the next couple of months. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We started working on it now.
Is Pirate Cove your biggest standalone one, or is the?
No, it's one of the smaller ones.
Okay.
$5 kind of little bit of content adding to all the parts of the game. So what we'll also find as we make this first one is kind of how hard they are to make, and also if people like them. Do people like them? Do they think it's a good idea? So that'll kind of decide our strategy as well. We'll have an idea of how hard it is to make and kind of how well they sell. and then we'll make the decision. Oh, we should make more of those, or no, let's just go and make the iPad version.
Yeah, we're pretty much done.
Cool.
Thank you, Colm Larkin.
Thanks so much, Shar.
Yeah,
that's totally right. Yeah.
Okay, so
Thanks
thank you for joining us, and you can find the Play on Ultra podcast on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, at Play on Ultra. You can find us on iTunes. If you're listening to us on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. If you're listening to us on iTunes or Stitcher, leave us a rating, leave us a review, and you can send us fan mail or feedback or questions at playonultra@gmail.com. And that's pretty much it. So, bye,
thanks so much
Guild
for
of
having me on,
Dungeoneering. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having us on. Thank you for coming on. So,
Thanks very much.
Guild of Dungeoneering, or what Total Biscuit calls it, the Pitiful Hero Murder Simulator.
Yes, that's a great line.
Yeah. Okay, see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.